This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Guy and Lady Barrel alcohol-infused cigars. These cigars are absolutely incredible, and they are perfect for any occasion. I particularly enjoy their newest flavor, Mojito. I'm not sure if you heard me correctly. I said Mojito-flavored cigar. I don't think it gets much better than that. Now, cigars are best enjoyed with company, so head on over to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and pick up a 5-cigar box set with any flavor of your choice. These cigars are great for birthdays, weddings. They're a great gift. You can give them for almost any occasion. I particularly love to get a cigar out, go on an evening walk, and pray. But you can use it however you want. Once again, thank you to Guy and Lady Barrel Cigars for sponsoring our show. Go to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and see all they have to offer. Please enjoy responsibly. Open-Minded Friends. I'm excited to be here in Los Angeles with Keith, Edie.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, man. So thanks. Keith and I met doing the Act 1 producer and executive program over the summer.
Which seems, a lifetime ago now.
Lifetime ago.
It's like a month.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited to meet you in person.
Absolutely, yeah, because we did the whole thing virtual. Normally it would be live, but
yeah.
we're the lucky class of 2020.
Woo-hoo,
we get to do it all virtual. So yeah, actually the first time sitting on the couch together.
But we drink whiskey on the show. We drink water. We drink whatever people bring or they want to drink. And you brought some. What did you bring us?
Yeah, so
hold up for the camera to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I brought 2 different things, but we're gonna start with this bad boy.
What?
I don't know if you can read in there. So this is called Bourbon OE. I have a part-time day job at a brewery here in Los Angeles.
Nice.
Technically Torrance, but that's just the South Bay, really. It's called Smog City Brewing. You can check us out online and all of that stuff if you want to. Instagram at Smog City Beer, right?
Nice.
Where you can reach us. So this thing is called Bourbon OE, and what it is, it's the base beer is what's known as a barley wine. Do you know what a barley wine is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the base beer is a barley wine, but then what we do is we age it in bourbon barrels for a year. So it's been sitting. We have a couple different companies we get bourbon barrels from, and we let the beer just sit in there for a year. So Have you ever had a bourbon aged beer before?
I don't. I've had barley wine.
You've had barley wine?
Let's see.
So much like you want to smell it first, right?
Yeah,
you want to get it.
I did already.
I mean,
when you were pouring yours, I was like,
So I don't know if you've ever done like in beer tasting. It's not like wine. What we try to do is, we smell it and kind of get the flavors. Like for me, I get a lot of caramelly and kind of malty notes on this guy, right? So and then you just sip it.
It's Oh, that's nice. That is nice.
It's smooth, right?
Thank you, man. Thank you. Wow.
Cheers. Yeah. I wanted to make sure to bring. I knew what the podcast was called, so I wanted to make sure to bring something that was
in line.
In line. So, do you know what the normal ABV on a bottle of beer is?
Yeah, it's like in the 4s or whatever,
right? Yeah, usually like 4.5 to 6.
Yeah.
7 for an IPA or something.
What are we drinking here? 10?
Oh, no. It's 14.9.
Yeah.
I mean, this starts to become like a glass of wine, in its strength.
Good morning, Los Angeles.
Yes, exactly, right? The crazy thing is, and what we always have to remember, us at the brewery, is how smooth this thing goes out, because it does not.
Yeah.
You'll be drinking this, and then you'll stand up and be like, "Oh, that's where that was going."
That's just extra 10% came from.
Exactly. So we do. Obviously, we have to test them because so they're in a bunch of different bourbon barrels. We have them marked so we know which ones they are. But then we blend them all back together to carbonate it. We put it in a tank to carbonate it and all that. So it's not like each barrel is its own then batch that ends up in a bottle. They all get blended back in. Well, to get to that point, we have to taste them. So there's always a day in the brewery where we've been pulling a bourbon OE out of the barrels, filling them in little glasses and tasting and going, okay, what do we like about that one? And it can go with this, and then blend them all together. And by the end of that day,
this is an occupational hazard.
A perk and a hazard at the same time.
Ubers, yes. Budget for some Ubers that day for the staff.
Exactly.
No, it's nice, man. It's nice. It's interesting. I've told people this before. If I could have named this podcast after my favorite beverage, it would be called Christians Drink Cosmos. So you're Sex and the City fan, like that's right? Yeah. Wasn't that what they were drinking all the time? Yeah,
Cosmos.
Cosmos. I can hang with those girls.
You and Kim Cattrall.
But I do love whiskey. I do love all kinds of beverages. But it's interesting, as a guy that likes sweeter beverages, like the flavored beers come out, and I'll show up at a bar and like maybe I know what's on tap or what they have, and I'll say like, hey, what do you got? Anything like? It feels a little awkward to be like, get any beers that are fruity?
Yeah.
But they typically will pour me a glass of like something that's like what's the wine? Like a glute wine or something like that. Something that's like this that's got a more of a sweeter flavor to it. I'm usually like, give me one of the pear beers.
That's sweet rather than dry.
Yeah, but so I've had a lot of this over the years. And so when I smelled it, I'm like, ooh, I like this.
Brings you back. Yeah. I think this beer is so smooth. When we release it once a year. We always, because it's got to spend a year in the barrels, right? So we release it once a year, and it's always a big.
So my dad's a migratory beekeeper, and so
whoa, step back 1 second. A migratory beekeeper.
Wow. So I grew up on the East Coast. Pennsylvania, Florida, Maine, in the
like moving in between
every year, back and forth, migrating. But we in our honey house or warehouse, there's lots and lots of barrels of honey.
Oh yeah.
And so when I smell this now, it brings me back to like the youth of like having these honey or honey byproducts, the wax, like there's different flavors. And there's like a dark buckwheat honey. Oh,
interesting.
Or a dark, like maybe got the bees pollinating flowers in like upstate New York, wildflowers, just random flowers. So it reminds me of that sweetness, and the barley, the grain, whatever, reminds me of like honey. A barrel of darker honey that's been opened up.
Oh, that's great.
It has maybe it's crystallized.
Yeah. I know exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great description. You could totally have a career as a sensory analysis of beverage. That was great.
But it would all go back to honey. How
everything would be honey.
This reminds me of
what are you getting out of this dank IPA? Well, I'm really getting notes of honey, but I would say it's an orange blossom honey. I wish I would have known that, because we make a beer called Buzzworthy, which is we use like 600 pounds of buckwheat honey in the beer.
That's like, do you guys get it by the like
drum?
Drums, drums.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the drums I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's why I knew exactly what.
When you get a drum, is it crystallized, or do they sometimes warm it up for you?
No, it's not. Like, it's not crystallized, but it's definitely not liquidy. Like we gotta get it ready to go.
Heat it up. Yeah. We had this huge. The barrels would be sitting there in our my dad's shop for years. Like this wonderful tasting beverage, and we would we had a big oven when we went to like bottle it or whatever. We had a big barrel oven that we would like put the honey in, the barrels in upside down. Yeah. Because sometimes it would be just crystalled in there. and we would heat it up, and it would drain out into a pipe and go for bottling.
So when you say he was a migratory beekeeper, then he'd like sold honey.
His main honey was a profitable byproduct.
Oh, okay.
Of his main income,
which was taking let me guess, which was taking the bees to different farms or orchards and putting them out so they could pollinate. Yeah.
Yeah, he would rent the bees.
Yeah. So I grew up where I grew up in Washington State, so West Coast, the exact opposite of you. It was in apple country though. Like when you think of Washington apples, that's where I grew up. We grew the apples there. And we would get people, my folks weren't orchardists, but, we knew all of them. There would be beehive. People would come and set the beehives out, for it.
Yeah. That's my, find out the name of one of them. I'm sure my dad knows.
And sure he knows them. I could.
Yeah.
But funny story. So, it's been years since I lived there, but I was talking to my folks a few months ago, and somebody had set bees out for I think it was a clover field was what they were using the bees for that. But the beekeeper didn't come back and get the bees and left the bees, and the bees obviously they started swarming.
Yeah.
And they went looking for water because it's really dry where my folks live. So they went to my folks' property to where because they have sprinklers and so and they were swarming my folks. But my dad is like highly allergic to bees.
Yeah.
They were not happy. They were
my mom
desperately trying to figure out who was going to come and get these bees.
Yeah. Did they call a beekeeper to come get them?
I think they did. They eventually.
I remember as a kid, springtime, my dad would do his work and then had 1 or 2 appointments that night to go collect swarms. It was like free hive of bees for him back then. Also interesting story. My mom, when they first got married, we were working together a lot.
Yeah.
And her immunity went way up, but then she had myself and my brother, and for a number of years was not going out working with my dad, and her immunity dropped way off.
Yeah.
To the point where she was super highly allergic.
Really?
Married to a beekeeper.
Yeah, that's
weird, you know? There's a movie, they made a movie, it's called Fatal Attraction. And at one point she had to go to a hospital in Baltimore and get injected with tiny bits of bee venom to build up the immunity, get antibodies to, And finally, she was, an hour and a half to Baltimore once a month to get this injection. They finally were like, you know what? You don't have to come in anymore. She's like, oh, cool. I'm cured. She's like, no, you still for most of our patients, we would still have them come in for another year or two to get increased doses.
Yeah.
But for you can just go get your husband to grab a bee, hold it against your arm once a month, and sting you with it.
Oh man, that just sounds horrible. I'm sorry.
So I remember as a kid, my dad would grab a bee from the bee observation hive we had in the backyard and whatever, and hey
honey, it's
Linda,
time for your time for your medicines.
He swears he didn't enjoy that.
Are they still married?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
okay, good. Yeah. So overall, it's a happy ending.
Yeah. Her immunity's back up, I guess. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's a great. I remember this seems like weird science, and
it does, in the vein of husbands and wives like that. So my dad was so the reason we didn't have an orchard is my dad was the police officer in town. Really small town that we lived in. When I say small, I graduated with 22 kids in my high school class.
Nice.
And 18 of us went to school together from kindergarten through senior year. That's how small this was. Okay.
Yeah.
So my dad was the lone full-time police officer. And I think he had one reserve deputy that would help out. Right. When he first got hired, in the first year that he got hired, he pulled my mom over in the middle of town and she was speeding. He pulled her over in the middle of the town and gave her a ticket. And she was so livid, but he had to do it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think she was late somewhere, and he did. And so from then on, everyone always knew that, my dad was gonna give him it was gonna be a fair shake. If you're doing something wrong, he was gonna. If you weren't, he was.
Whether you're an Edie or not.
Yeah, you're gonna get you're gonna the hammer's gonna be dropped. I always love that story. My mom still gets angry when we bring that story up. It's perfect though. I love it.
It's great. The tensions of working parents. That's awesome, man. So, first off, it was great to meet you in person. You know, we're meeting a lot of our Sarah, who's helping me out produce this week. I'm meeting Sarah for the first producer. Sarah, can you jump in every once in a while, Sarah, and just say now from the producer's chair? I'd like to say, right? You ever when you listen to a podcast or whatever, you got the two and there's the producer, and then I always wonder why don't they just make the producer's talking just as much? Yeah.
Why don't they just make the producer part of the? You know, they're still the producer, but they're part of the right. But it's always
ego. It's ego.
It's gotta be. Oh, okay.
Ego.
I wasn't gonna point out you specifically. I was more meaning like podcasts in general. But hey, if we want to,
we're those characters. You know, like my character gets the main, the focus, and then the producer character gets over there. And occasionally, if we do well enough, then we'll put a camera on the producer.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Right.
Cool. So, Keith, you are you're working at this wonderful brewery right now.
Yep.
And you're a producer as well.
Yep.
So you're working at this brewery, but you're producing, and you were acting. Tell me about your journey into producing.
Yeah. So actually, I've been an actor for the majority of my existence. Like that's what I started out doing was acting. Did my first play when I was 14.
Yeah.
And then I think did my first paid gig at 21, like right when I graduated college. Yeah. Like I started acting. And I've done that for a long time. In addition to teaching acting, I taught acting for about 8 years at a university.
Oh, here in Los Angeles? Or?
No, up in Washington.
All right, cool, nice.
So I brought that too. I don't know if you can do it, but you can take this guy. Keep this, okay. Like if we're not gonna, this is for you.
All right, cool.
An extra.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Right on.
So we're talking about these are Carly's. that one is my absolute favorite.
That's a horrible idea. What time? Yeah, that's really good. That's good.
So we're talking about you being starting off as an actor.
Yeah. So acting for that, like that's what I've trained to do. That's what I've been predominantly for a long time, and which I still do. Like I still I have an agent. I still submit on stuff, and I typically I mean, if it works, I'll do a role in one of the projects I produce.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. About 11 years ago, I got married. We were talking about that earlier. About 7 years ago, my wife and I moved down here to LA from Washington, where we met, where we were both teaching at this university.
Yeah.
And my wife's a writer. She was teaching playwriting. I was teaching acting. And about 7 years ago, we decided we didn't want to really teach anymore. And so I was like, okay, what are we going to do? And at that time, I had just come off doing a play. I was doing a play in, Tampa, Florida.
Wow.
I'd got that gig and flown out there. And I was like, well, you know what? I want to jump back into it professionally again. So I had worked for a while, got the teaching gig, and then I'd gotten this, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to do that. So let's go to LA. And my wife at first was like, I promised myself I would never live in LA in my life. I was like, well, yeah, but if we want to I think that's where we got to go. Like if that's what we want to, what we want to do. She's like, okay. About 2 months into living here, my wife looked at me and said, I can't believe I never moved to LA before. This is like the place I was meant to be. Wow, so I was like, awesome. There we go. That's great. Just like I am secretly an LA girl. Like she grew up in DC, lived on the East Coast.
What about Los Angeles is wonderful for your wife and you?
Oh man, I mean, wildfires notwithstanding or smoke in the air notwithstanding, you can't beat the weather. We love the energy of the city. Where we live is about a 20-minute walk from a place called The Grove, which is a huge outdoor market and mall for, I guess, listeners. We got listeners everywhere. So anybody who knows LA will know that landmark, but other people, it's a big kind of centerpiece of Hollywood in the city. But then it's also like a 20-minute walk to Museum Row, which has the LA County Museum of Art, and the new Academy of Motion Pictures Museum, which is coming up right next to it, and the Lucasfilm Museum that he's building. You know, all that stuff. It's like a 20-minute walk. So yeah, then, you know, of course you've got to drive when you're in LA, but where we live also is we have convenient to some freeway. Yeah. And so we're pretty accessible to all points in Los Angeles. And then the other thing, because I mean, we could have gone to New York, and we both love New York. Like I mean, we both say, like, if London and New York are probably 1 and 1A of the two cities I enjoy visiting the most in the world.
Yeah.
And I think I could live in New York, but at the age I am now, I think I would need a whole lot more money to live in New York than the money you need to live in LA. I like to say you can live really easily and really well for a lot less money in LA than you can in New York.
And a lot less money than that in Washington.
And a lot less money than that in Washington or Central Pennsylvania, which Washington is where we'll eventually retire back to. I think awesome. We just bought a house up there.
Sorry, Mom. I won't be coming back to Central Pennsylvania.
I tried.
To visit, you know,
I tried.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So
and then sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just remembered and then to producing. So came down to LA, and it was going, I mean, really well. I got a national commercial, like almost right off the bat. Got on a few episodes of a couple different soaps. Got on TV. Got on a couple indie films. I mean, like, it was going really well.
Yeah.
Like that. Like it was going well. But even with going well, acting is, until you get to the point where pretty much they're calling you. They may be calling you to come in and audition, but they're calling you specifically. Hey, we want to see you specifically for this role. Yeah. Until you do that, you're living that kind of gig to gig lifestyle as an artist, right?
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, 2 to 3 years ago. That's how quickly time goes. Like I can't keep it straight in my head. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so all good. Cancer-free now for either a year or 2 years, depending on if it's 2 or 3 that she got. But she's been cancer-free since the surgery and all of that. So everything's really well. But, I mean, like, I'm sure you know, Sarah, I'm sure you know, and probably anybody who's listening, we all, some statistic that we all will either know someone immediately or one person removed that has had cancer or been affected by cancer in some way. And it really is, it sounds like a cliche, but, and while I was going through it, I was like, I'm a cliche, but it makes you relook at things. Like, what are you gonna, like, what really needs to be in focus? And for me, it came into focus that, well, I really want to have something that's a little more solid, a little more, what's the word? Regular. Yeah. So, I picked the obvious thing. I picked producing, because that's going to be, solid and regular. But no, so I've producing some of our own projects, but then also, like, since we finished this program, looking for different more full-time producing gigs, like with a company with things like that to do. But then also the independent projects to work on, your own ideas or ideas you find, like, to kind of have both things going, because ultimately, what I want to do with my life is take care of my wife and make sure she's happy, and that my family's good, and that we'd like to say, a life filled with love and adventure.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's a
really beautiful combination. Is she's also a writer? Is that right?
Yeah. So
did she start out as an actor as
no,
well?
no, she would laugh at that. We often. I mean, she's acted. So anybody who's she went in college, in theater in college, and all that, and anybody who does that has acted at some point.
Yeah.
Right. So she has acted, but when we would talk about doing projects, doing things, she would say, yeah, I really love rehearsal, and I could just rehearse like the whole time, and if there was no audience, like I'd be fine. And I was like, are you crazy? Like, I'm like, after 3 weeks of rehearsal, I'm like, fine, that's enough. I know what's going on. I know what I'm doing. Let's get the audience in here. Like, that needs to be done. There needs to be people watching me and immediately responding to whatever I'm doing. And she was that's why you're an actor. And I'm
writer,
like,
right?
yes.
She could like rehearse and
keep it going and like digging deeper. And I'm like, no, come on, let's go.
Let's hear what the audience says about it. Like,
exactly.
Great. I appreciate you can keep going over this for like a year.
But no.
But the audience, when the audience comes in and they can keep going for a year, then we got something.
Then we got something going. Yeah. So no, she was a playwright. Initially, and still is. In fact, she has a show. So what was it? It was like actually right before we moved down here. She wrote a one-woman show that she took to New York. She performed. She did it in New York at a festival. I'm forgetting what the name of the festival was, but it was like the theater festival that she did, and she won an award for it, which was great. And since then, it's been regularly produced at theaters around the country.
Awesome.
She doesn't perform it. She's performed it a couple times since then, but normally she doesn't. Like the theater gets permission and they get.
She's not an actress, but she performs her own show
every once in a while.
Okay.
I think since that initial performance, she's only done it twice. And that was 7-8 years ago that she did that initial performance. Yeah. Now they hire people to do it. And in fact, it had an off-Broadway run last year.
Awesome.
And it's now currently being, they're going to do a filmed version of it to put it on BroadwayWorld.com and to try and get it at some Broadway theaters once Broadway theaters are able to open again.
And what's that called?
It's called The Pink Unicorn.
Nice. And
it's loosely based on real events and on our lives. It's about a small town Texas Christian widow whose child comes out as genderqueer in this small conservative town, and then the fallout of it. And it's a hilariously heartfelt comedy. So the woman is totally politically incorrect. It makes fun of everyone. No one from conservative to liberal, Christian to Muslim, everything in between, race. Everyone gets skewered. In it as this woman deals with the conflict, loving her child and what she's been told her whole life.
Yeah.
So that's being done. That we're turning it into a podcast actually right now. We're currently in talks with some people to put it out as a podcast.
Nice.
And then we have a TV pilot written that before COVID, we were actually meeting with some people to talk about it. And then since COVID, that's kind of been put. So we shifted gears, hopefully get the podcast out, and maybe that'll lead to the TV show.
That's awesome.
But what she's then doing now is writing film and television. So like this, we were talking a little bit earlier, this Christmas movie that she just finished, and then she writes novels. My wife is a machine, so this is. I know she's not here, and it'd be better, but I'm gonna gush for a little bit.
Go. Well, you already have, but keep going.
No, I'm gonna go even more. But this might be the last thing. I'm not gonna promise. She's a machine. She gets up in the morning way before I do, has her coffee, and is real disciplined. She has a cup of coffee, gets another cup ready, but then sits down to start writing. And she'll write from, depending on what else she's got to do in the day, from 4 to 8 hours.
Wow.
She'll just write. And if she could, she would write 8 hours. Like she would do that. Like she loves it. But she also has a lot of us out there, you got the second gig as well. So she still teaches. Yeah. She runs the theater program at West LA College here in Los Angeles. So then she's got to do that. And Oliver did if any blessings come out of COVID, she actually has gone to an all online schedule. Like she's kept her job the whole time, which was praise God that happened. And then it moved all online. So she can she writes, then does some teaching online, like corrects or whatever, or responds, and then does some more writing. So she's doing the podcast, doing the TV show, and then also has a novel, or probably 2 novels she's working on at the time. Like she's phenomenal that way. Anyway.
So you're here hanging out with me, drinking some beer midday, and she's back there.
When I left, she was writing on time. I was like, I knew I was gonna be on this, and she was like, "Okay, have fun. Am I gonna get to listen to it?" I was like, "Yeah, when it comes out, he'll tell me when it's gonna air." And yeah, absolutely. She's like, "Okay." And as I walk out the door. That's how that went.
Keith, man, this has been awesome hanging out with you. We're going to segue into the second half of the show, which is me asking typical questions I asked. This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye Whiskey. Dad's Hat is real rye whiskey made the right way. This month's featured bottle is Classic Rye. Barrel aged for at least 6 months in charred new oak quarter cask allows the genuine rye flavor to evolve quickly. As a result, this small batch whiskey is ensured of reaching the right balance of complexity and smoothness. The final product is a very smooth spirit that delivers upfront spice that rye is known for while finishing with a full, round mouthfeel. To find a distributor of this award-winning whiskey, head on over to dadshatrye.com, or if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you can have any of their delicious rye whiskeys delivered right to your door. Trust the distillery with over 200 years of American distilling tradition, Dad's Hat Rye. Please enjoy responsibly.
You want me to... You're dry. Should I pour...
Yeah,
do you want to try this other thing?
We can finish off the first glass.
You want to finish off the first bottle? Yeah, please.
Let's go back to that.
Please.
Thank you.
Producer Sarah, you're missing out. I know, but...
I don't like alcohol.
I know.
So, the question I started this podcast to ask, cheers again.
Cheers.
What do you think of Jesus?
Oh, man. Wow, I'm very glad that you didn't tell me any of the questions that we're going to ask, because that's a good one and the way you phrased it too is great.
What do you think of Jesus? I mean, because I have people, all kinds of different people on the show. There are Jesus freaks like myself, but also comedy directors that grew up Jewish. People that started in the church, left the church. People that have never been in the church at all. So it's an open question. Yeah,
absolutely, and I love it. So the beginning of that question, or the beginning of the answer to that question, starts is that I'm a born again Christian, and I've had my. So in that, I've had my ups and downs and my relationship with God. Now I know, so I'm gonna. I think we can use the terms these ways. I'm in no way trying to say that I don't believe in the Trinity. I do believe that God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit all one. But I will refer to them in different facets because they represent different parts of right.
Yeah.
So within that, I have definitely had my ups and downs, and a close and a drawing away, and a fear, an unhealthy fear of God. God is all. I've struggled with God.
God the Three. Or
God the Father. God the Father.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification. So I'll start with that. With saying, but with Jesus, man, I don't know that I've ever with Jesus. It's been pretty straight down the line. What a cool cat. That's such a weird way to put it, but not really, because man, I mean, I believe Jesus is the Son of God, and I believe Jesus is the way to salvation. But beyond that, then I believe Jesus is a great role model for anybody. Just the way the dude lived his life, the way he interacted with people, the way he taught and brought along and was a storyteller, and the way he loved everyone, and the way he accepted the outsider, and the way he care. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how anyone now, whether you're going to believe in the divinity of Jesus or not. I don't know how anyone can look at Christ's life and be like, "What is that?" I honestly don't.
Yeah.
I say it kind of flip, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look, we know he was a real dude.
Yeah.
Like whether you believe in his godhood or not, he was a man who existed on the earth, and from all accounts, the man who existed on the earth was a pretty freaking good guy.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah.
Nice. As a born again Christian, to use that word, I'm not sure that a lot of people I've asked that question to in 30 some odd podcasts, maybe even 40 by this point, have used the word born again Christian.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's interesting. That comes, I think that comes with a lot of connotations.
I think it does. Absolutely.
And so what does that mean to you? What does born again mean to you?
So I use that term because I want to take it back. I think it comes with a lot of negative connotations in today's society, much like Christian itself does. I'm really frustrated that somehow a political party hijacked my religion and they've become synonymous with each other. I think that's unfortunate, and I'd like to reclaim that as well. That I'm a Christian, but I'm not affiliated actually with any political party. And there's
This message paid for by Keith.
yeah. My name is Keith Edie, and I approve this message. I actually, there's things from both that I agree and disagree on both sides. On all sides, I'll throw the Green Party in there too, and the Libertarians. There's things I agree and disagree with across the spectrum.
And the Whigs, why not?
Yeah, man, bring back the Whigs. They're not on the ticket for this year, but Whig 2024, right? Why not? Who was the last Whig? Like, it wasn't. We'd have to look that up. I think they only had like 4 presidents that ever sat, right?
Bring up any third party will do.
Yeah. But back to the born again Christian part. For me, born again Christian means that I lived my life in a certain way and pursuing certain ideals up to a certain point in my life, where then I made a decision that I was not going to, that I was going to live my life pursuing a different and focused on a different set of ideals. For me specifically, so I was raised in the church, and I first accepted Christ as my Savior when I was pretty young. And a lot of people find that problematic. I know that a young kid, but I never felt even through that my parents were whacking me over the head with it. It was my parents went to church. I was their kid, so they couldn't leave me home on right up going to church with them. And so, but I can say that when I was 18, that was when I made my like real conscious decision to go, no, this is, I do believe this. This is what I believe. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God the Father, and I believe in the Holy Spirit. And to go that way with my life. But it doesn't end there. Like, so for me, the born again part comes with, even when I had done that, I spent a long time in my life, even though I was a Christian, chasing the wrong things. Idolizing and chasing the wrong things, chasing money, chasing influence, chasing celebrity and fame and power, physical relationships. I mean, all of that. And I got we're drinking here, but I'll tell this story. I remember one day I was actually living in Los Angeles. So I said I moved with my wife, and I moved to Los Angeles 7 years ago, but I moved to Los Angeles the first time in 2000. And I lived in Los Angeles from 2000 to about 2005, 2006. And when I remember one morning I woke up in my bed not remembering how I'd gotten there. I'd gone out the night before with friends to a bar, and by the grace of God I got home, but I don't know how. And in my own car, my car was in the driveway, and I was, letting all of that ruminate. And for the first time in my life, I heard the literal voice of God. I've heard the literal voice of God twice in my life, and this was the first one. And it said, "Go home or you're going to die." And I knew immediately it meant I had to go back to Washington. So I packed up, I left and I went back to Washington, tail between my legs.
That day, a month later?
It ended up being about a month and a half. I had a commitment of a show I had to finish.
Yeah.
I wasn't didn't want to start off breaking my right. So to do that, but then when that was done, I left. No prospects of what to do. Didn't know what I was going to do. Ended up finding my way. But it was then and through that process that and actually this process has been going on, this process of changing has been going on since then. I'm much further along than I was then. But my wife and I were talking the other day. So we just bought this house in Washington, and we were talking about, that's where we want to retire and all of this, and we were like, well, you know what? And for both of us, this was true. When we got to LA, we were still like, okay, can't wait to get the house at the beach. Can't get, the things we were moving towards. And we were both talking, and we were like, wow, I just don't, however it's happened, the work we've been doing with each other, praying, just all the stuff we've been doing. I was like, man, if that happens, that'd be cool, but I don't need it to happen. And man, I'd love to have a red carpet premiere of something like that. It'd be cool to invite people we know and to see something we made up on but if that doesn't happen, that'll be cool. And so to me, the born again thing is I'm living my life for the goals and things that we've set since then, which is, I love when I produce something, I love hiring a person and being able to pay them. Like I've only been able, I haven't been able to pay somebody $1 million to do something yet, but that's I would like to do that. But I love finding, artists, people and saying, hey, I have this project and I can pay you this amount of money for you to be able to do what you want. And, this is what I have. Would you like to come and play and hang out and work on this? Yeah. And I love being able to do that. So I love being able to give back. I love being able to create stories and having people just watch them and laugh and not laugh or say, that was good, or, I didn't like it as much as the last one, whatever it is, right? It's more so it's living towards that. So for me, that's what born again means. I think the negative connotations a lot of times get into this, I don't know, hardcore, fire and brimstone, intolerant thing that happens. And I mean, going back to Jesus probably one of the most tolerant people that ever walked the planet.
Tolerant yet bold.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, his message, I keep going back to this, his message was repent because the kingdom of God is near. Uh-huh. And whatever that kingdom looks like, it doesn't look like, it may not all look like #blessing for everybody.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't. We're in the world, and the world's broken.
Yeah, but it looks like peace, but there's also this directness of like, hey, I just sent away like a bunch of people about to stone you. You're welcome, but but you have work to do for you.
You have work to do as well.
Yeah.
I love the way C.S. Lewis puts it in the Narnia books. And he's talking about Aslan, but Aslan is the metaphor for Jesus.
What? Are you serious? No way. Just broke for me.
But what he says is Aslan is nice, but he's not safe.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus is nice, and tolerant and accepting, but he's not safe.
Yeah, for cool.
He's not. He's bold, and he and he asks things. But and what's
Jesus is asking, whoa.
and what's really interesting? Yeah, I know, right? I blew your mind a second time. How am I doing this? Jesus is he asks even more of those that then come to him. Right? That's the thing that gets lost a lot in the New Testament, even with Paul and all of that. It's the people that get demanded the most are the people that have come and repented and said, I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
The people who have not, like, we get that I'm forgetting the actual verse, but the essential context is that it's about judging. Wow. But what we're called to do, or to holding people accountable, we're actually called more to hold each other accountable, not non-believers, because the non-believer hasn't entered into the compact.
Yeah. The covenant.
The covenant. Thank you. That's the non-believer hasn't entered into the covenant. So how can you actually hold them accountable or demand from them? You can't.
Yeah.
They're the ones you actually have to be more tolerant of and love. It's the fellow believer that we're supposed to hold accountable. If you've entered into the covenant, then I'm supposed to hold you accountable for the way the direction our lives are pointing and what we're pursuing in life and how we're living that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Awesome, man.
In my humble opinion.
IMHO. As the youngins
as the young people say.
Cool. How long has it been? 45 minutes. Cool. I got this other question.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it. What you touched on it heavily, but the question is, like, typically, like, when it comes to the church, the believers, like, what are we doing well? What can we improve on?
You mean so as the church, you're talking about the body of Christ.
I'm talking about me and you.
Yeah, great.
And us.
Yeah, so I attend a church, and it's all virtual right now. A church here in Los Angeles called Ecclesia. Churchinhollywood.com if you want to check them out. And one of the things that the pastor there talks about, Pastor Rittner, John Rittner, talks about developing food truck churches, which is who doesn't love a food truck, right? And in Los Angeles, food trucks are, and I think you can probably say Southern California in general. Is San Diego, food trucks big in San Diego? Their producers there?
I think it's worldwide.
Is it worldwide now?
Yeah.
At least countrywide.
Yeah, countrywide.
Okay. So food trucks. Food trucks go into the community to give the people what they need to sustain them.
Yeah.
And I think his food truck church analogy is really good. Like, that's what we could be better. I remember in Act 1, either one of the teachers or Jimmy, if nobody's mentioned before, but you've had Jimmy on your podcast. Is Jimmy gonna air before me?
Probably, yeah. Depends. We're judging who's better.
We're juggling. Yeah, who's gonna lead better? No. So and it might have been Jimmy who said it. But and I'm not saying they made it up. I think there's a concept that's out there. But we live in a post-Christian society in the United States. And so in a post-Christian society where people aren't coming to the church as a building as much, how do you reach them? And I think the food truck, and I think that's something we could be doing better. I definitely know I could be doing better. It's always tough to do what are you doing good at? Because you never want to be like, but honestly, there are things we all do pretty good. I think what I do pretty good is the accepting of people that are different than me. And I actually believe that's one of the missions I've been put on earth for, is to be that person who invites those people into my home and has them over for dinner and things like that. So, being with them on set, working with them. So I think that's something I'd probably do pretty well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. This is going to go weird.
Oh, great. I love it.
The next question.
Mm-hmm.
I ask a lot of my guests. Have you ever had any? And you mentioned God spoke to you twice.
Yeah.
By the way, what was the second one? So
the second one was to come back to LA.
Oh, wow.
It was when we were kind of deciding what to do next, and I was in our bedroom and I was praying. Every once in a while, I'll do the literal like either down on my knees or I'll lay down. Like every once in a while, I'll do that if I'm really wrestling with something.
Do you ever fall asleep when you lay down?
Every once in a while, I'll admit. When I meditate, I fall asleep too.
Every once in a while, when I lay down to pray, I actually pray.
Right. So this time I wasn't. I was on my knees, so there was no danger. And I was, wrestling with this. What are we gonna do? And I kind of had it I did have it in my mind that LA might be where I wanted to. Like that was kind of foremost. But then I was like, God, you tell me. And I had this moment. It was in a flash, and it was God's voice, and it was also a picture. And this is you said it was going to get weird. So God said LA, and I got a vision of the golden road in heaven. It was LA, and it's going to be golden.
Wow.
And I kind of...
Were the cars the same?
No, the cars are actually more clunky. No.
Classic
What was funny... Yeah, classic heaven. What was funny is there was actually there was no one. Oh. It was literally the streets of gold. It was Golden Street. And actually golden buildings too. Like everything, there were buildings on the side. It was golden. Wow. Everything was gold. Like I can still see it, like just that bright, like vivid, sparkling gold.
Yeah.
So I kind of stumbled out of our room because it was like, whoa! I kind of stumbled out and came out kind of dazed. And my wife was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "We have to move to LA." And she was like, "Okay." Like she could, I guess, like she got it, like that I had just been told this. Yeah. And so of course, me being a human and me working through all the stuff I'm working, I'm like, oh, we're going to go to LA. I'm going to land that sitcom right off the bat. Like we're going to be right is going to be golden. Well, working through other things, it has been golden. Like the bottom line is it has been golden. Like we're almost completely out of debt. We've always found a place. We've lived 2 places. Both have been perfect for what we've needed. Yeah. We've had enough money to live, always had been provided for. With money to pay the rent, like everything's just been, sometimes it's been a little tighter, but it's always been shaked out in the positive at the end of the month. And our kid, which I think I mentioned before, our kid who's non-binary, LA has been a revelation for them rather than the small town we were living in Washington, which we love. I mean, if anybody's listening, we're going back. Like that's not it, but it has been so good for our kid to live here and to start making connections and friends in their community. And then the thing that we've learned. And we're still learning, we're working on, but is so much more prevalent is we've learned how to be happy. And how to be happy with what's going on right now. It doesn't mean we're not always moving towards something. We've got plans, we've got things, and we try to be guided by, follow the doors that God has opened. I mean, for about 3 years, I was pretty much doing nothing but beer because all the doors were open. I was getting these jobs at breweries and it was, and it was what I needed. And so I was like, great. And now other doors are kind of opening and things are happening that way. And so I remember talking to her, I think it was sometime this year, maybe early this year or late last year. I was like, because we kind of talk, what are we doing here, why that? And I was like, we came down here to learn how to be happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was the golden. That was the second time.
It's awesome. To learn how to be happy. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
What have you had? So I'm slowly segueing into what is the typical question I ask.
Yeah.
Which is, and you mentioned God spoke, so I asked you that question again to go deeper into time number 2. But have you had any other paranormal or supernatural or spiritual experiences?
Oh man. Wow, that's a good one. You know, I actually really believe in the spiritual and the paranormal and not in, you know, what is that? Not in very much that I think we have souls, and I think that the you know, angels and all of that. I think there's a spirit world around us, and I think sometimes we get little glimpses. Yeah. Now that since I started talking, so both of my mother's parents are passed. My grandfather and my grandmother on my mother's side. My grandfather when I was in high school, and my grandmother when I was actually living in LA that first time. And then one time I was asleep, and this was more than a dream. This was, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had this experience. Like sometimes, you know, there's dreaming and you people show up in your dreams and all that, but this wasn't that. Mm-hmm. This was very much. So I was asleep, and my grandparents, who were both Christian, and I firmly believe are in heaven, they showed up to me when I was sleeping. It was the two of them standing there together. I can still see this. It was the two of them standing there together, a light behind them, dark all around them, but they were circled, framed in light, and they were there telling me that I was okay, that I was going to be okay. That's what they wanted to tell me.
Was it happening at a time that you were experiencing something that?
It was happening that time when I wasn't. I don't think it was okay that I was in. You know, obviously I was headed down, but they were telling me that I was going to be okay, that everything would work out.
Yeah.
The timeline wasn't necessarily what I thought at the time, and all of that. You know, it never is.
Yeah.
But they were there telling me that I was okay. And I also know one of the reasons. So my grandmother was taken from us she was alive, but taken away and disappeared, and we didn't see her. I think it was 5 or 6 years that she was missing.
Wow. And
then she showed up in a hospital in Wenatchee, Washington, which is about an hour from where I grew up. Where my parents were still live at the time, and they still live there. Showed up in a hospital dying. She'd been kind of left there. And I was away. This was before that. It wasn't at the last show I was doing, but I was away in Germany doing a play. I was in Germany doing a play. And they found her, and then she passed away while I was over there, and I never got a chance to. To say it's a regret is hard, because I couldn't have left. Like I was in a foreign, and I was, you know, they were paying me to do this show. I couldn't, They can't cancel it. But it's one of the things I regret most, is that I was not there to say goodbye to my grandmother. Yeah. And so then when my grandfather and my grandmother came and told me that I was going to be okay, it was also, I think, I know it was in also regards to that, like, my grandmother was telling me it was okay. She understood. She got it.
Yeah.
Right. Like all that. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest, like, paranormal thing. I also believe there could be life on other planets. I don't necessarily know in our solar system, but
yeah.
I mean, why not? Like I think we're special, but what makes us so special that another solar system couldn't have, you know, life made by God?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why limit God in that way? Like, that's my other thing. We limit God so much. Why limit God in that way?
I did an interview with my friend Wes, and he was like, "I think we're alone, but I could be wrong." And I think it's a great, like, hey, here's my guess.
Yeah.
Here's my guess about how God works, and I think there's a lot of things that God has told us.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of things He hasn't told us.
100%. Like, there's probably more He hasn't told us than He has. I mean, honestly, like, the sum total we have of what He's told us is in a book that's usually about, what, that thick?
Yeah.
Depending on print.
Yeah. They did it on a credit card once.
Yeah, there you go, right? So that's...
Yeah, but it was... I think that we... Pride kicks in. For me, pride kicks in. And we're like, I know everything that God knows.
Oh, yeah. Right?
This book, it's a thick book.
Yeah, it's not thin, but I mean, it's not as thick as The Stand. Like, Stephen King writes thicker books. Come on, let's be honest.
It'll take you a while to get through it, and you
Yes.
reread it, and you'll get more stuff out of it. And,
Yes.
But it's not everything, and I think there's some wonderful there's a wonderful lesson there to just be like, to not put God in a box.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we want to put... I wrestle with that all the time. So my wife wasn't raised in the church. My wife came to God, came to Christ much later. And so, and I think this is often true. So in... hand me that.
Slow.
Yeah,
slow down.
but this is a different... We just try it.
We're going down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. This is much less, and I'll talk about it in 1 second. So my wife has a much different relationship with God than I do, because she came to it in a different point in her life and all that.
Yeah.
And I often think that people who come to Christ and later in life, in some ways, have a better understanding and a better relationship than those of us that are raised in, because when you're a kid, you hear things and you filter them a certain way. Like, there was a lot of stuff I heard. I don't think anybody in my life was ever maliciously trying to get me to have weird or misconstrued views of God. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying, as a kid, what someone is saying and the way you hear it as a kid are often much different, right?
Yeah.
So as a kid, you can get a whole lot of different weird concepts. So my wife, I'd say this to say putting, limiting God or putting in the box. I remember the first time I heard my wife tell God that she was pissed off at him. And I was like, oh, I couldn't believe, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst.
Yeah.
And I asked her about it and talked and I was like, she was like, God can handle it. Like, He knows I am anyway. Why should I vote? And I was like, oh, you know what? I think that's actually true. Like, why would God, if God knows everything, He knows you're angry anyway, why wouldn't He then actually appreciate an open dialogue about it?
Yeah. It's awesome.
So this here,
it sounds like very much like David, the Psalms. It sounds like the Psalms.
Yeah, there's times
there's some weird, whack, angry stuff going on in Psalms.
So, okay, real quick. So this is going to be something much different. This is a sour beer. You ever had a sour beer?
This is the end of the podcast, Keith.
You ever had a sour beer?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a wine barrel-aged sour beer, blonde ale, I think, a blonde ale. It doesn't say if it's blonde.
Where are these coming from? What brewery?
Smog City Brewing.
Smog City Brewing.
With peaches. This was then aged with July Flame yellow peaches.
Wait, hold off.
Yeah.
We are in the podcast, but there's Patreon. There's like special patron only content.
Oh, Patreon only content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not tasted yet. I'm getting something. Please head over to patreon.com, patreon.com/Funny&Amen. I want to ask Keith one more question. I want to try this. What is it called? Peach?
It's called the July Flame, named
July
for the
Flame.
peaches that are in it.
July Flame. And you can get it on are for our patrons only. Keith Edie. Wow, this has been awesome.
Yeah, pleasure, man. It's been fun.
Head over to Patreon.
Where we're going to continue the fun.